Hi, welcome to the Living Light Hour. My name is Reverend Lynn. This is show 860, and it's about patterns and programming. So, as always, I hope you enjoy the show. Don't forget, we're showing on Saturdays at 7:30 a.m. on Channel 53, and as you probably know, Sundays at 8 o'clock on Channel 54. You can check the local listing. I think it's actually in there, but yeah, Saturdays 7:30 a.m. in the morning on 53. And Sundays 54 at 8 o'clock. And of course, got some on YouTube, and supposed to be some video on demand too, in case you want to see the show. So I'll check to see if that's on, but you can try it. Also, we got a YouTube, got a couple of shows there on YouTube. I'll be putting more up there, and you can check us out. My wife's Instagram is Bubba, B-A-B-A, Lynn, L-I-N, 333 on Instagram.com. You can check her out. She's got a lot of posts there about shamanic signs, which is basically paying attention to what's going on in your life, paying attention to the visitations that one has from animals, insects, clouds, suns, moons, synchronicities, coincidences, things like that, only bringing them into context of the miraculous or in context of the manifestation that we're a hologram, we're being communicated to. The universe is communicating to us all the time. God is talking to us all the time. God, the universe. God, that which I am that I am, that energy, that awakeness is always there communicating. And we're asleep, and when we have our little awakenings, and when we notice something out of the ordinary, and we don't just say, "Oh, that was nothing," or when we really look at something, maybe like a sunset, or a tree, or a butterfly coming by, or whatever it is, or a hawk, or anything that kind of crosses your path, then you pay attention, and you wonder, and you ask if that's a message, if there's something coming to you, if there's something, some way to awaken. Anyways, that's what she does on the site, so I think you'll enjoy it. She's quite wise and has a lot of insight. And it's a pretty good photographer too. So I think you'll love her pictures, and get some of our Pomeranians are in there, our girls, and a couple of other things. So yeah, check her out. It's BABLIN 333 on Instagram.com, Bubba Lynn. And I have a little bit on there too under Shalen, SHALEN_2 at Instagram.com. I have some pictures and stuff I put up there, and a couple of comments and stuff. But anyway, I think you really enjoy her show. She's somebody, the person behind, all these men that enlightened us, or that we heads of the religions, they always had women behind them. There's always the women there that were keeping the spirituality, holding keeping they're grounding the energy, making it real into daily life. That's what women do. They make it real. Men, we tend to get up into our heads, and we like being up on our heads. We don't like so much hanging in our hearts, because that's the seat of emotion. So we don't really like. We're not used to it. We're not practiced in it. We're practiced and conditioned to stay out of our emotions, to bypass the emotions, to overcome them. It's weak to be emotional. So therefore we kind of shut them down or bypass them, which makes us ungrounded. We're not grounded in things, and so then we intellectualize stuff, and we bypass that emotional thing, which cuts us off from the earth. It cuts us off from reality, from being here and now. You find women have a tendency, of course, not all. There's plenty of women who don't do that. for many various reasons, and but in general, the generalization, the women will be the ones that'll bring they bring the relationship down to earth. They bring they check in. They have us check in as to what's going on. Do you really love me? I say, oh, of course I love you, dear. I say, well, how are you loving me? Exactly. What are you doing to show me that? To demonstrate that. You say, oh, did I have to demonstrate that? I mean, don't you just know that? You say, okay, that only worked like way back. It doesn't work anymore. You have to address the fact of how do I love you? How am I loving you? How am I practicing love? It's actions. There's things that you do. There's things you say. Feelings that you express. Deeds that are done. Yeah. So women will do that. They'll bring the relationship to the ground, and they'll bring religion, and they'll keep the religion grounded in daily life. Because when religion or spirituality is grounded in daily life, when you're living it in the family, then that's real. Other than that, it's just something you do on Sundays or Saturdays or one day a week, and it's not something that you really spend your life. There's the secular and the spiritual. If you separate it, you do a duality thing. We have a secular life and a spiritual life, and in reality, there is no separation. That's all in our minds. Which is what we're talking about tonight on patterns. I know the one pattern I'm dealing with, I've dealt with, you find these major patterns in our programs, or we even call them personalities, because it seems to be, it's a type of mood, energy, character. I mean, personality has to do with more than just social mask. It has to do with deep programming that starts when you're an infant and begins then. And of course, our two greatest programs, as a mother and a father, those adults that are with us from the beginning. They're the ones that we're learning from, and they're the ones that we're mimicking and idolizing at first, and then rebelling against later. Those patterns have been handed down from generation to generation ad infinitum. That's our job here is to break those patterns. And why do you want to break the pattern of your parents? Because they're not you. That's not who you are. We're spirits. We're here. We're entities that have come in for self-realization. Every pattern that we live unconsciously, puts us more and more to sleep, to the effect of who and what we are. And so we're going for this. What we call our authentic self, which is not our mother and it's not our father. There just simply is not. They're not who we are. They're them. Their patterns, their personalities have been imprinted on our hard drives, if you will, our little minds, and so we have them in our storehouses. So we watch them. We watch how they dealt with the world, and we model them. We watch how they dealt with each other, and we've got models of them in there. So when situations come up, there's a tendency. I mean, unless we've learned differently, which what happens in your life is you learn differently. You learn from you draw from other resources, and at some point in time you draw from inner resources. So you kind of model yourself after something, say more spiritual, or something more moral, or less identified with the world and more identified with love and compassion, and a deeper sense of I, a larger sense of the I, the greater I, instead of the small I, where our personalities are wrapped up in these small I's. I, my desires, what I want, what I'm afraid of, and that I shifts from time to time. You don't know who that I is, because these patterns that we have inside of us, inside of our brains, they're like electrical charged energies, and these electrically charged storehouses, they're tapes and they run. So when they're stimulated, so when something comes in that stimulates me from the past, I react. So I'm reacting. So when I get married and I put a ring on, then that stimulates a pattern, a parental pattern, a marriage pattern. And who did you model? Who have you been watching your whole life? Your parents. So what tends to play out is your parents' marriage, unless you do something to change it, unless you're conscious of that, oh, that's what they did, I don't want to do that. They did it this way, I want to do it that way. You change something, you're consciously doing something to change. But I mean, what I've found in dealing with this, because this really is forms of enlightenment, is just realizing that there are many selves, there are many I's, there are many yous. We just call them moods, and we call them phases of life, or we'll call them personalities. We put them on personalities because we recognize the certain programming and pattern. I mean, there's a personality quote inside of you that's your mother, and there's a personality that's your father. It's guaranteed. It's not even a theory. They're imprinted on the left and right side of your brain. The male goes on the left side, and the female's on the right side. That is the male and female side of the brain. The brain's separated into two lobes, and then you get your animal, the primal, in the back, and then this consciousness is in the front. This gray matter. This is where the evolution is in front. In the back, at the space of the spine, is the animal. It's the primal stuff. Those are where our drives are. Our drives are sitting back in there. Our food, sex, sleep, survival, dreaming, all these things are set back in there. And it's the regulating and the stilling of those drives that brings us into the peace, into the tranquility that that we're going for in this life. Not to be driven by these animal drives. Not to be an animal. We're inhabiting an animal. The mammal is the body that we're in, and its drives are things that we have to take care of. We have to take care of the food and the sex and and sleep and self-preservation. These are drives. These have to be taken care of. The moderation of these and the understanding of these, the being in touch with them, the self-knowledge is not an intellectual process. The self-knowledge of these drives is it's an emotional, physical, real-time being aware of these drives. Understanding and being aware of the fact that you're hungry, and that is a drive, a program, and that it has a ton of energy, a ton of storehouse of DNA programming tied into it. And if you don't understand it, if you don't see it for what it is, you just let it run yourself. Then it basically runs you. You'll kill for food, and you are on a regimen. You have to eat at certain times, and if you don't get your lunch or your dinner, you get angry, you get upset, and maybe now you won't kill because you didn't get it, but before you would have. In earlier stages of humanity, if you didn't get your food, you had to go kill somebody to get your food. So these are pretty basic drive. Sleep is right up there with it. Just how angry do you get when you don't get your sleep? These are the drives that are, and sex. I mean, say more nations have been lost, destroyed, lives have been destroyed. Countries, civilizations have gone down because of sex. So, and self-preservation, of course, is underneath it all. Okay? But all of these are their drives, as in, yes, you need to eat, and you need to eat, nourishing foods, but in moderation, and as nourishment to the body, and you have to balance that out with appetite and taste and everything, and all of the different sensations, and we're studying all the sensations that come in, so we can understand. I really want this, but my intellect tells me because of that I really shouldn't eat that fried food. Maybe once in a while, but on a steady diet, it's going to make the animal sick, even though it is appetizing and addictive. So we deal with our addictions and stuff. But in the course of dealing with self-knowledge, this is what this is about. Self-knowledge is where meditation will take you, is into thought patterns and into emotional patterns, and understanding and see them arising, and learning how not to, what we call, identify with them. I mean, it's as simple as, I have a desire to go and get a candy bar, and I sit and watch it. And it comes up and it comes up and it gets more and more and more. And as I breathe, as I go into my breathing, it passes. I have a desire to eat, it passes. I have a desire to sleep, it passes. I have a desire to move, it passes. Sometimes to lesser or greater degrees. Sometimes it completely passes. Sometimes it passes a little and comes right back. And you notice all of these things have to do with your identification with them. And your ability to say, this is not me. This is not me. And I know the one that I've dealt with, well, I mean, I've dealt with mother and father. It's not, there's nothing more to, I mean, we basically have to deal with our mothers and fathers. They are inside of us. We are them, Making peace with your parents is more about making peace with the parents inside of you as it is making peace with the ones outside of you. That's why it's good to make peace with the ones outside of you, because that helps you to make peace with the ones inside of you. But people often say, well, I have a really good mother and a really good father. Why would I want to not be identified with them? Well, because they're not you. Good. It's good that you have good parents and that they, didn't abuse you, or that they did a little bit, and they taught you stuff, and they taught you good programs. And there's always, you keep the good stuff, let go with the bad stuff. But they're not you, And what the difficult part of this is realizing that at some point in time, that which we think, which is our authentic self, kind of fades away. It loses its energy. And when it loses its energy, and that's why as we get older and life, we have this energy of conquering the world and conquering ourselves. But conquering the self is, it's an enormous task to do. The Buddhist say it's like fighting 20,000 enemies, 10,000 enemies with one hand tied behind your back, something. And meaning to say, it isn't easy to do. It isn't easy to conquer the self. In other words, it isn't easy to deal with desire, to deal with these things that drive you, and to not engage with them. It's kind of like the Christian thing, get thee behind me, Satan, which to say, don't deal with it. If you deal with it negatively, you're dealing with it. If you deal with it positively, if you try to run away from it, you're dealing with it. It chases you. It's learning that stillness of looking at it and saying, this is not me. There's only one power. There's only the power of love. There's only God. God is the only power. Everything else is delusion. Everything else is illusion and delusion. Those are the things. Those are the tapes. Now, bringing that into daily life is actually going through some tests with that. I mean, getting into an argument with your wife or with your husband and understanding the reenactment that's going on, or asking yourself, is this a reenactment? Is this something that I learned? Is this the way my parents fought? Is this the way who is this? What is this inside of me that's in this argument, that's in this fight? And you're looking and you're studying it because that's when you find out, that's when you become aware of what's running you. Usually we just go along in daily life and we shift into these different personalities and we don't really pay attention to the change. And you might be a masculine energy. One moment on one part of the day and some sort of an outside influence will come in and you'll shift into a positive, a female energy, or you'll go back and forth, or you'll be in a male energy for days on end, and you won't be aware of it. It won't be something that, you're aware of it if you're with somebody else that is doing this and paying attention. You can help one another say, oh my, you're kind of in a male energy. And who is, that's probably your father. Or we take on these, we model, people that we kind of think are neat or cool or particularly strong and powerful. A lot of it, because, from our base sides where we just want to be powerful, That's why, as a female, you might have identified more with your father than your mom if your mom wasn't so powerful, because the men had the power. So you find, a lot of women these days, since they're not controlled by that, by society to be a female, that they can be who they want to be. Well, they model themselves after their fathers because they're the ones that had the energy, And that's changing over the last, decades, but for people in their 60s, 50s, and 60s, that's how you did it. You modeled yourself after your father. When you went out into the world, into the business world, as things changed, you became your father. And again, this is all interesting as self-knowledge. It's not real. There is no father inside you. They're just thoughts. They're just thought patterns. But this is what we do in a daily life. We live out thought patterns. We live out programs. You can hear the tapes come out. You can even hear yourself do it. You can hear yourself say the same thing over and over again. When you have new friends, you start telling the same stories. The tapes are coming out. And you're telling the story. It gets a good story. It gets a good response. So you can be aware of that, or you cannot be aware of it. That's why we keep looking for new people to influence, because we want to play out the same patterns. When you're with each other, the patterns get old and worn out, and if you're not breaking the patterns, if you're just kind of living on them and letting the patterns run you, well, we get tired of each other. We get tired because the patterns aren't real. That's why you don't want to be them. They're not real. What's real is you. You're real. Your spirit, your soul, you're real. Your authentic self is real. Your authentic self is not run by patterns. Its pattern has to do with God, which has to do with spontaneity, has to do with compassion, has to do with laughter, open-mindedness, open-hearted, being empathetic. This is the real you. This is the one that, and we maneuver ourselves, our energies out of these, away from this part of ourselves, this authentic self, because but it's a sensitive place. It's a place that can get, it has emotions, and so the emotions can get hurt. And if you're exposed and open, it's like electrical shocks. You get an electrical shock, Somebody will say something, those words are shocks, and those shocks go in and they hit that place, and that place recoils in you. And as it recoils, it's kind of like a wound, and just like you put a scab over it. So a lot of wounds get a big scab, and ripping the scab off is not an easy process, Yeah, and you could go and convince yourself that I don't need to take the scab off, everything's fine. You say yes, but underneath that, because you aren't dealing with that, because you're not being authentic, because you have given in, you have succumbed, you have co-opted yourself. that underneath is festering. There's anger going on. You want to say, well, what are you angry with? Oh, I'm angry with my mother and your father. I said, no, you're angry at yourself. You're angry that you aren't being you, that you're co-opting yourself to a job, to a marriage, to a family, to to a religion, to an idea that is not you. That's all. I mean, which doesn't mean you shouldn't have a family. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have a religion. It doesn't. I mean, it just means that in all of those things, there's you, and it's always the thing of getting back to you, and who are you? What are you? Where have you come from? Where are you going? What is going on? What's the purpose? Purpose is self-knowledge. That's the short answer. Self-knowledge. Ignorance is the cause of all of our suffering, but it's not ignorance of the books or the university. It's the ignorance of the self. It's not being aware of your emotions. It's not being aware of the intent. It's not being aware of what's driving you, what's running you. And each of us, at some point of our life, we will be dealing with these different fears, different identifications of attachments, desires, addictions, these delusions. Where we think, where we think a certain way, and we're hallucinating basically in one form or another, or we're blocking out reality. We're living in a perfect world that doesn't really exist in reality. It's only perfect in the greatest sense of the word. It's not perfect in fact if you leave your little neighborhood that you're lucky enough to be born on, our country, and just imagine yourself transported into southern Sudan if you're, say, a woman, or a blonde guy even, going to southern Sudan, and there you are, and you land in southern Sudan, and then and this didn't happen because of chance. You're here because of chance. That's why you're here. Chance. I don't know, maybe you lucked out, maybe you didn't. It depends. It all depends on what you're trying to do with this life. If you're just trying to coast along and have a good life and be happy and enjoy life, then well, you lucked out. If you're really trying to move through and trying not to keep doing this endlessly, come back here again and again and ad infinitum, then maybe you wanted to be born in some place where you could realize that this is not a great place to be coming to. And trying to figure out, why am I coming back here? Why am I here? What is what we need to wake us up is individual. It's different. We all need some sort of a shock. Sometimes it's an inner shock. Sometimes it comes from within. There's just an aha or an awakening. Often it comes from without. It comes from somebody or some situation. A birth, a death, a marriage, a divorce, an accident. Something will shock us. It's an electromagnetic jolt, and will shock us into the here and now, into reality. And so it doesn't have to be an enormous event like that either. It can be sometimes it can be just a certain ordinary event, but an extraordinary moment of realization comes in. I have had some events where I was here and now. I can remember that they have no meaning really. It's just, but they're clear as day. I remember it, and I remember, well, I was there at that moment for some reason. For some reason, I just had to be there. As a note to myself, a future self, or as a memory that needed to be that needed to be etched in stone, so that I would remember that this is that there's some of the energy at this particular time. I can remember a time, it's clear as day, when I was 5 or 6 years old, walking out of my house very, very angry, and picking up a stone, and there was a bird there, and just throwing it at the bird, just angry, and killing it. And it was like, that was it. That was something he told me. So that happened to remember that time. You're 6 years old, you're very angry coming out of your house at 6 years old, and you killed the bird. And that whatever happened inside that house, and I've come to find out it could be a number of different things that would have made me very angry, and that was there to mark that. And you'll find in your life there's just things that stand out. There's just moments that stand out in your life, and those are for self-remembering. Those are there to help you to remember yourself that in this time frame that there's this snapshot of who and what you are, and what's driving you, and what's running you. So I've been dealing with my, like I say, I go back and forth between the mother and the father, but really identifying them with their lesser qualities. Because as you go deeper and deeper into this, you have to deal with, as you get older, if you haven't been doing any work on it, you just kind of go into an asleep state, and you basically become them, and you just don't know, you don't understand that you're them. You just have their mannerisms, you have their ideas and their thoughts, and it kind of wears you down. And the reason why it wears you down is they're a lot like societies. Societies programmed them. They were programmed. The whole thing is to be unprogrammed, not to be socialized. It's that socialization which brings in the patterns. Like in our socialization, what we're uncovering now is we're uncovering the male dominance of the socialization. And for all of the men, growing up in my time, I was born in 1945, so I was just barely on the side where I'm not quite a mature, but a baby boomer. I get half of me in the matures and half of me in the baby boomer. And it's been a struggle my whole life, because there's part of me that's just been into all of this stuff, and then there's this other part that's just, just an old guy that doesn't, get it, and it's flipping back and forth between these sides of my brain has driven me and my wife crazy. But in realizing that, in realizing these patterns that you see in society has the male domination, what the Me Too movement is bringing out is this. How do you say it? The fertile, the ground, the fertile ground of growing male privilege, male superiority, male entitlement, and the sexual misconduct, and it's. We're being confronted, as men, we're being confronted with this, and it's so intrinsic, that it goes into everything we do in our daily life. It's all about power and control. So every act that we have, where we're doing power, where we're doing something that is feeding oneself and selfish in that way. Kind of feeds and nourishes that, and everything that is selfless breaks us out of that pattern, and we have to break out of the pattern. So the selflessness service is the key, and this is the key to the men, and this is the key to male abusers and all of this stuff. The male abusers don't do that well with psychology and stuff. It's like they just get to be more clever at it. That's all. What really works in the end, and you see this for AA too and stuff like that, is really finding a religion, and I really don't mean Christianity, Buddhism, Muslim, and stuff like that. Although that's probably where you have to go with it, but it's really devoting oneself to a moral, selfless service and understanding, in devoting one's life to service. And this is the key. This is the key to breaking my father's patterns. And my whole struggle, my whole life has been with this idea of, sure, I'll serve, but I need to be served too. And then there's that switching over and that entitlement that I deserve to be served. I deserve to be taken care of. I deserve, all of this stuff, which even may be true to some extent, but it feeds something that's already been overfed. It's it's in order to break out of it. Service is the key. Find some form of service. Now, serving at the office and serving in charities and not serving at home, it doesn't really do it. It's the service at home, which is where the break comes in. And that's why where I've found years of working on this is putting myself into this situation of the caregiver. I saw a great little skit or a story in one of the social medias where the man and his wife are sitting watching TV, and she gets up and she says, "Okay, honey, I think I'm going to go to bed." It's about 10:30. She says, "I'm going to go to bed." And he said, "Okay, I'll be up in a little bit, okay, fine." And she gets up and she's tired, and she goes into the kitchen and she pulls out his lunch for tomorrow, makes a sandwich for him, puts it down, gets the kids' lunches out, puts the kids' lunches down, gets it in, puts it in the refrigerator, gets some tea out for him for later on in the day, and then goes by and she feeds the cat, feeds the dog, and makes sure they get good water, changes their water, cleans out the kitty litter box, and goes up the stairs, and as on the way up the stairs stops into the kids' rooms and checks the kids in, makes sure that they're okay. And, then she goes by the other kid and goes into that room and puts the light out and opens the blind, opens the window a little, and then goes out of the hallway and then goes down and gets his clothes out for tomorrow and gets her clothes on, lays them out for tomorrow, and then she goes and she washes her face and washes her makeup off and combs her hair. And then she goes and she sits down at the bed and comes out there, and he's standing there and saying, "What's happened?" He said, "I thought you were going to bed." She says, "Yeah, I have been going to bed." He says, "Oh, okay. So it took you a long time." She says, "Yeah, it took me a long time." She says, "Okay, well, I'm going to bed." And he goes to bed. That's the story, The woman gets up and has 19 things to do before she goes to bed. The man gets up out of the seat and turns the TV off, turns the light off, walks up the stairs, takes his clothes off, puts his pajamas on, whatever, goes to bed, brushes his teeth, goes to bed. This is the difference. This is the world of caring that, with male privilege and male entitlement, that caring doesn't enter. Because we do have important jobs, we bring in the money, and this is all that lizard brain things of, that we put the bacon on the table. But that doesn't break us out of the societal patterns that keep us in the separation, that prevent us from being our authentic self, which is the consummation or the summation of giving, of being one with God, one with our wives, one with our children, one with everything around us, and being aware of that, nourishing that, caring about all of that, and that's how we can measure where we're at on this thing of breaking this male programming, breaking this whole thing is to measure what are we doing on a daily basis that has to do with caring. This is in the home now, because we do greater work in charities and outside group. But in that home, it's how much are you taking care of? And if we start dividing up the labor, that's when we start getting confused. Because it's justified. You don't want to. Everybody's kind of measuring how much they're doing, but you often see a woman or a mother doesn't really do that. That's kind of what they do. They just take care of everything. My wife can't. She basically can't go to bed without. It takes her an hour to go to bed. And I definitely have that in me, where I just feel like I should just get up and walk in there and lay down, pull the blankets up, go to sleep. That's it. What's the problem? And this is how we confront this. You know, and it's not about right and wrong. It's about awakeness, being awake to what's driving us, what's running us. You know, what are we giving into? Because this male programming, this male privilege, this male entitlement, is the thing. This is what creates wars. This is what creates the selfishness and the hatred. This selfishness, this being stuck in, we call it being stuck in the power chakra. You know? Being stuck in the power chakra is establishing rights and privileges and establishing territory and getting mine and being strong and being the provider, being all this stuff. That's being in the power chakra. You know? We start bumping up into the heart center, into love, into compassion, because we do this for our families. This helps us, gets us over. But that's also that's a program, because that's really limited in scope. You get a whole bunch of time where you don't have to do any of that. And that's where men and women get into the things at home. And we get a honey-do list, and we get the guy resenting because this is like endemic. This is so strong. I mean, I've been working on this for 30 years, and I still feel it every time my wife says something. And she hands me a list. I feel like my father rising up and saying, I don't want to do this. I just want to go sit down. I'm tired. And then you start getting old. Say, I'm old. And this is the work. Underneath this entitlement is hatred. Entitlement breeds hatred. Rights and privileges breed hatred. Where do you balance it off? It's not easy. You have to, the balance is you talk it out, you get straight about it. She gets to explain to you about what being in the hearts, because as men we need to learn how to be in our hearts. And you have to be in the heart. You have to be giving, compassionate, caring about, empathetic to others, to the plants, to the animals, to the kids, to the house, to the to the cars and to the garage and to the yard and to the office and stuff like that. But it's everything, This is what a woman would do. If a woman had to go to work, and the ones that do go to work, they do the same thing. They come back home, it's the same thing. They're going, But as men, we have to learn. If we want to break this pattern, if we want to stop this, it isn't Roger Ailes and Donald Trump and all these other people. It's you. It's me. It's right there. They're just examples of extremes of what happens when you get a lot of money and a lot of power. They're just examples of how to get really, really lost in this thing. But it's you and me. We're the ones that are breeding it on a daily basis. It's changing them. They're never going to change. But you can change. And I can change. And by changing that, by working, and what I see it is working against my father's programs, and I can hear the father program. I've been studying this for years. So I recognize that sense of power and anger and entitlement, and I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's not that big deal. Who cares? This is not important. This is petty. All of these little tiny words, and if you don't correct them, they build up into a divorce. That's where it's all heading. It's heading to you can't stand being around one another. So you either make a deal that you're both going to be your mother and father, and kind of live separate lives together, and not really be intimate, or you keep maintaining your position, and you basically don't want to live with each other anymore. The alternative is the sharing, the communicating, the talking, the breaking the patterns. But you can't have her make you do that. If she's making you do that, that's part of the pattern. That just makes her into your mother, and you're the son. And and this is like, this pours out of us. It's not something that is just one person does. Everybody does it. It's right there. If you're not working against it, if you don't feel it come up, if you don't feel that energy come up and decide not to identify with it, decide, I could do that. I could say I'm tired, but it really does need to be done. And I could do that, and I could do a good job, and I could do it. I could do it for the sake of doing it, not because she's making me do it, but because it needs to be done. And this you have to work at. So you have to work at this. It's so easy to become, to succumb into the thing of being henpecked, or being the abused guy, but really you're the one doing the abusing, because you're really maintaining that power struggle. And I saw how my father did it. He was very quiet, but very Teflon type thing. You couldn't really stake. And my mother was always very emotional. Everybody, she was the pain in the butt, and he was the poor dad. She's always on him. He just wants to come home from work and sit down and smoke a cigar, drink, fill the house up with smoke, watch his TV. Watch this. I lived in this day in, day out, 16, 17, 18, 19 years of this, It's pretty much imprinted in there, If you beat the fact of, okay, well, you're not going to smoke, or we did that, and drink, you did that too, that's over. But you still have that pattern of entitlement, that feeling where you get to sit there and just kind of watch TV while she does the work. And it's the pattern. That's the pattern that you're breaking with. You can't be in a spiritual pattern. You can't be spiritual. You can't go off and preach or go off and do this and come home and do that. That's abandoning God. Because God is unity, God is love, God is compassion, and it's everywhere. It's both of you on 100% of the time. It's hard to get that across, because it's so subtle, and we get tired of fighting it. Well, that was the idea. You get tired of fighting it. Of course, that's the way it works. That's how evil works. It's propaganda. As you see what's going on in our political things, the propaganda is you keep saying the same thing over and over, and people get tired. You get tired of the atrocities. You get tired of the outrageous statements. You get tired of it. That's how propaganda works. That's how it works. It's constant barrage of lies, constant barrage of lies, so you can't tell the difference anymore. And you're just so weary of it, and you just feel like, I don't even care anymore. That's the part where then all of a sudden truth and lies are now, there is no such thing. It's now, you can make up your own thing. This is how propaganda works, and this is how evil works. The evil is the constant barrage of energy, the constant ideas of laziness or of entitlement or of privilege and all this stuff. And whenever you put the mantle down, whenever you get tired, it's right there. And you find yourself succumbing to it. And you have to wake up and pick yourself up and say, oh, this is not me. This is not who I am. This is an old pattern. I'm here to break that pattern. This is the generations, and we need to break the patterns, And these things don't die easily. These are dinosaurs, They don't die easily. They will die when you stop feeding them energy. You don't feed them. That's why you can't fight them, because they're enormous. They're an illusion, so you can't fight an illusion. All you do is waste all your energy. And if you run away, you waste your energy. It's an illusion. It's not real. So the way to kill a dinosaur is don't feed it. Just don't feed it. It'll die. It'll die of its own. It'll go away. It's not about dying because it's not alive. There is no father inside. There is these patterns are patterns that have to be fed. They have to be nurtured. If you don't nurture them, they pass. They go away. That's the key. The key is not to feed. Whatever you feed, it's that Native American story of the grandfather says to the child, he said, he said, we have two wolves inside of us, a good wolf and a bad wolf, And the child said, well, which wolf am I? Will I become, the good wolf or the bad wolf? And he says, well, whichever wolf you feed, you'll become. And so we have that in whatever we feed, whatever pattern. If we feed entitlement, then we'll become entitled. And then that, of course, there'll have to be a reckoning, because there always is, always. There's always a reckoning. Gandhi's great quote that, there's the course of history, there's been despots and dictators and criminals that have amassed power and have seemingly been unconquerable and have seemingly been immune to any kind of correction. But each and every one of them have always, imagine that, get that, have always been brought down. It's always. So it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And that's what we're dealing with today. You can watch it, and hopefully, because we're speeding up in the electronic age, those that are out abusing powers and privilege and feeding that bad wolf, they will feel that the truth, because the truth and love always win. They're eternal. The other things are illusions and deception, and they're delusions, and they sooner or later they stop getting the energy and they disappear. As long as once they're not fed, they disappear. They finish. They fall down, because the only thing that can support them, the only thing that keeps them up, is the belief in them, in the food that's being fed. So it's always those around the despots and the dictators are the ones that do it. Not them, because he couldn't possibly be that way if he didn't have people supporting him. That's what but that's outside of you. Inside of you is your own dictator, your own despot, your own identification with power and privilege. And that identification with power and privilege, in conquering that within yourself, is key to changing the world. Because each one of us that does that, we tip the scales. We change the consciousness of the world. As I work on my energy, as I work to not to further and to continue that pattern, as I break that pattern, I weaken the pattern. As I strengthen, as I identify with it, I strengthen the pattern. Just a matter of time before enough people, enough men, break the pattern, stop feeding that, and start serving, and stop being what they're there to serve God, to serve humanity, to serve with compassion, and that's their life, not to be entitled and privileged and all that stuff, but to be servants. When enough men turn that way, that'll break that pattern, and then that pattern will change, and we'll have a change of the energies that we're living in. Go into more of a conscious time. It's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's just when. Because it's already started. It's not going anywhere. The awakeness is started a century ago. It's been going on for a long time, actually, but it's coming in, and what we're seeing now is just a backlash to the awakening. Just a backlash. That backlash doesn't have enough energy to last. It'll change. And as it changes, it'll change because you're changing. It'll change because you're changing yourself. Wars will stop when you stop fighting inside of yourself. When you stop seeing a black person or a Chinese person or a Russian, when you stop seeing them that way, when you stop seeing Democrats and Republicans, when you stop seeing men and women, when you stop seeing that, the wars will stop, and they won't stop until then. As long as there's these others, there'll be wars. And the more that we work on ourselves and we see that these are patterns, this is not the way I'm spirit. We're all one. If we're all one, then we're all one. The labels and stuff that we put on is made up. These are all made up labels. We're all one. We're I. We're the I that I am. The God consciousness. We're awakeness. We're consciousness. That consciousness is what we are. The more we realize that this is not me, the closer we get to realizing that we are one. I am woman. I am man. I am Donald Trump. I am Hitler. I am Mussolini. I am Gandhi. I am Jesus. I am Buddha. The I am that I am, that's it. That's when we start to realize it. But we have to break down our own identification, what we believe we are, and say, this is not me. This is my father. This is my mother's pattern. This is not my beliefs. They're their beliefs. I took them on. These are not my thoughts. Their thoughts. These are not my words. They're their words. I just took them on. That's all. So anyway, that's yeah. Oh, it's over. Well, see you then. Something happened with my computer, so I hope it works out. Aloha.